Hello and welcome to another episode of Graham Hughes' Pubcast.
Hi.
Though we're not in a pub, we are in the Egg Cafe in Liverpool.
Again.
The increasingly inaccurately named Pubcast.
I've done a couple of these in a car, so,
Yeah.
whatever.
I'm on the
was
hard
the
gear
last?
here, the Dandelion and Burdock. Cosi is on
Cranberry juice.
blood.
I've actually finished my coffee already before we even started, so I might get one halfway through, let's see.
Oh, that'd be convenient.
So let's pick up where we left off from the last podcast where we were talking to Doro and to
Doro's husband, Peter.
and they were telling us what it's been like to try and get permanent residency in this country that they've lived in for 40
yeah.
years. Well, she's lived in for 40 years.
Yes.
Okay, can I just clarify, right?
Yeah.
Getting permanent residency in this country, even if you were successful, have you got any faith in getting that in this country after the Windrush scandal?
Okay.
I don't.
Which form of indefinite leave to remain do you mean?
I don't know, I'm a
Because there's
British
permanent-
national, I can stay here. Unfortunately.
Well, actually, British citizenship can be taken away from you relatively easily as
So
well,
it would
but-
transpire, Sajid
anyway.
Javid.
In principle, they're all supposed to be indefinite leave to remain. So you can come and go as you please, but then if you're out of the country for more than a certain amount of time, and this is like, I've come across one gentleman who lived here for about 18 years and then moved away in the early noughties to Spain. His daughter stayed here. When he left, he actually asked, is there anything I need to do? And he was told, no, you've got indefinite leave to remain. You can come and go as you please. If you want to come back in the future, you can. You can always come back and settle here because you've lived here for so long.
Right.
Lived in Spain for 10 years, came back, and actually, came back to look after family. And then Brexit happens. And actually could have, if it had existed back then, made a Windrush application, or if he hadn't left, by now he would be able to do a Windrush application. But he moved to Spain for about 10 years and hasn't got any evidence of ever coming back even for holidays, because why would you keep an airline ticket from 2008, right?
Well,
that's
I've
it, isn't
I've
it?
flown so many times and I've not got a single transcript apart from on my Qantas frequent flyers account.
this is the
but
thing.
that only lasts for 4 years.
What we're
Right.
asking people to do is to give us their paper trail of the last X many years when they weren't told at the time that they needed to keep it.
Exactly. And if I'd come here as an immigrant, then I probably would have kept much better records.
Yeah, but you came here as an EU citizen.
You came here as someone who was
exercising
legally entitled to live and
Absolutely.
reside here.
But before we go any further, I've got a complaint to make.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I'm complaining because you made me take the chip off my shoulder, so
Oh, I
back
did.
it goes.
Bargaining
Because
chip.
Oh
here's,
yeah, because this.
here's what we did today. Okay,
We
so
had
Graham
to-
made me take all my pins and badges off.
Like I wanted to get these die-hard Brexiteers.
We're going to
on
have
camera,
to go to a more
Rotherham.
Brexity
We're
town.
coming
want
to
get them
Rotherham.
on camera.
We're
So
gonna come to Rotherham.
To do three things.
They're
One of
going to
them-
drag me to Rotherham.
One of them
We're going
was
to drive you
meet-
to drink.
Meet Cosi.
That's too late for that.
One of them was to meet Cosi and get to know her a little bit, and then say that they're cool with no deal, and then just tell her to fuck off.
And we met no one who was
And we
prepared
met
to
no
go on
one
camera and
But
say
We met no one who
was
admitted to voting
voting
leave.
leave.
they
They all
just
either didn't want to talk about Brexit, or they said they voted
we
Remain.
voted to remain.
The
other
only
thing-
ones that wanted to talk about Brexit all said, the next question was, well, how did you vote?
Yeah.
And they all said, oh, we voted to remain.
The other things that we were going to try and get people to do is burn the British flag. We had a little paper British flag, and try and get them to burn the Union flag
Did you
on the
actually
grounds that.
did you ask anybody?
No, we
were
never got
trying to
onto it
find the
because we were
leaver.
trying to do the first video with
Because we were
you.
going to say, well, you want to leave it no deal. Okay, Scotland's going to leave, and that
Yeah.
Northern Ireland's going
Yeah.
to be unified with the Republic of Ireland, so this isn't going to be our flag anymore. We're not going to be Great Britain anymore. We're not going to be the United Kingdom anymore. We're going to be England and Wales. Like
And
Trinidad
Wales is
Tobago,
now,
San
and Wales is
Tobago,
now looking at
you
independence.
Or we could bring the name, because the name of
Both Trinidad and
Tanzania.
Tobago and Sao Tome and Principe are much nicer.
Well, maybe, but Tanzania is actually Tanganyika and Zanzibar, and they put those two names together to create the name Tanzania.
Tanzania.
So in that respect, I wanted, when we merge with Wales, for Britain to become Wangland.
Wangland.
And the third one that we were trying to get people to do is to sign up to being on the border at Northern Ireland.
Yeah, because they're going to put this. There's going to have to be a border because there's always a border between Turkey and the EU. There's a border, even though they are in
whoa! Back up the bus.
I'm not in a bus.
Even
A big lying bus with £350 million a week to the
even
NHS.
that bus.
I'm not in a bus.
Even between two countries that are both in the Schengen zone, is there a border? There always is a border. The question is, how porous, how soft, or how hard is it? Is anybody at the border patrolling it?
Well,
and
there's
checking
always
it?
a geographical border, but the point is between Turkey is in a customs union with the EU, but they still have a hard border. So there is most likely, in the event of no deal, going to be a hard border between the UK and the EU, where it's only land border. We've spoken about this before, I think,
have.
but the only land border is on the island of Ireland.
Yeah.
So we were going to say to people, right, you voted for Brexit. What's going to happen is they're going to have some kind of checks.
A CCTV camera.
A CCTV
How
camera.
many border points are there in Ireland again? Was it?
It's over 200.
Yeah, it's more than.
There
in the
is someone
whole of
in
the rest of Europe.
on the island of Ireland whose front room is in the Republic and his toilet is in Northern Ireland, right? There is someone, he literally phoned into the James O'Brien show. But the thing is, right, there's going to be a camera on a pole and some paramilitary is going to come along and shoot the camera. And then they're going to have to build like a bigger fence around the camera to stop them getting so close. Or they're going to have a man guarding the camera.
With a sniper scope, you can't do a 400 yard.
They're going to have a security guard. So someone's going to come along.
Someone's going to stand there
and shoot the guardsman.
Yeah.
So then they're going to have police officers, and they're going to have to build a barracks and a room for those police officers, and they're going to come and plant a bomb. So then they're going to have the army. So, you know, if you're demanding hard Brexit, a WTO, which no one was told about ever in the campaign for the referendum, you should be first to sign up your children or your grandchildren to be on that border patrol.
Yeah, put your lives on the line.
And that's what we were going to do today.
But we couldn't find anyone.
Couldn't find anyone daft enough to admit to voting for Brexit.
But even if we did, I don't think we would have found anyone daft enough to sign up to
gammon.
Not enough gammon. Liverpool is a gammon-free town.
We need to go to a gammony more place. There's some gammon here, but they're few and far between.
Well, the ones we
spoke 58% remain.
The ones we spoke to were just like, oh no, I don't have time to go.
Do you know what really winds me up though? The narrative that is peddled out by these bastards down south, all public school boys like Dominic Cummings, who owns a castle, that bastard Farage, who was an ex-city banker, the known liar Johnson, who's lied to the Queen, for Christ's sake. That should be treason.
The known liar Johnson, who lied in front of the press saying, there's no press here. How fucking stupid is that?
He never said that money had been spaffed up the wall in historical
child sexual abuse
inquiries.
Spaffed up the wall.
He said, I never said that, and then they just played the clip of him actually saying it immediately afterwards. He doesn't care, and his fans don't care that he lies all the time anyway. But they're not going to be watching
Richard
this,
Little Johnson.
But then you've got like Rees-Mogg, who's born into immense privilege. This guy who's made millions already out of Brexit, and will make a lot more. There's currently £8 billion riding on a no-deal Brexit through these hedge funds, which hedge the bets against the British economy failing. So if the British economy fails, they're going to make a shitload of money. These are rich people making more money. And the narrative that they're peddling is that us thick northern monkeys, because we're all racists up here in the north, all voted for Brexit. And that fucks me off. No, that is the one that just really gets to me.
Well,
it's so
they
patronising.
It's
so demeaning. It's so not. It's so London bubble.
Centric, yeah.
You know, and London voters remain, and the people in the London who vote remain. Oh, they're the elites. They're the elites.
Yeah,
in London
there's some kind of bubble. This is what makes me laugh. They said, oh, they're in some kind of bubble. It's a city of 9 million people, but the people who voted for Brexit live in a village of 600 people where there's only 2 surnames. Yeah, you know what I mean. You know, and they've got one of them's got an uncle who's got like an Adam's apple the size of a ball cock.
The fact remains that Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle all voted Remain.
Yeah.
So what the hell happened in Sunderland?
Sunderland is like Rotherham and Barnsley. It feels forgotten. I mean, you've heard me on the James O'Brien show about this, and it feels forgotten. And that's the problem. And the problem is that these people, and a surprising amount of young people, voted for Brexit in these towns, but they don't remember the hardship of the miners' strike. They don't remember the hardship of the steelworks closing and what the EEC, as it was, did for these towns.
Yeah, but the older people do. What about the older people there who voted for it?
Well, they don't give a shit. That's pulling up the ladder, isn't it? You know, the older people...
And they have rose-tinted glasses of the past
and the older people as well don't want funny foreigners coming here with their funny foreign accents and the funny foreign ways. You know, they to them, having a Polish person who can assemble their flat pack furniture for them in a second language is a mere convenience. It's a mere convenience. They're not bothered. They're quite happy for their son or daughter to order something off Amazon and it be delivered by a Czech driver or a Romanian driver. But they don't want immigration. They've got that rose-tinted, and that's what I was trying to get over to James O'Brien. They've got these rose-tinted spectacles, as Cosi says, that like, oh, the good old days, you know, when men were men and the sheep were worried, you know? It was, that's what they're after. Now, what shocks me is that since the Brexit vote, and since Nigel Fuckhead, or whatever he's called,
Farage,
Fartas, since he put up that infamous breaking point poster,
which only had Muslims on, by the way, there were some white people on it, but they put the actual wording over
the white
people.
And the thing is, that happened on the day that we had a British politician assassinated by a white supremacist.
Yeah, and then they said that they would stop campaigning,
and
but they didn't on social media.
And that was Aaron Banks, because Aaron Banks is a racist, lying fuckhead of a man.
And he's tiny.
Who is a blood diamond miner, by the way. Anyway,
he makes his money through blood diamonds. It's the same people who are complaining about Greta Thunberg and millions of children who
like to bully a 16-year-old with autism. That's mature and grown up.
Wishing death. On a 16-year-old child,
and calling her a freak, and basically acting like these old men in their 50s and 60s, on Twitter, going after a 16-year-old schoolgirl.
Oh, I mean, it's like we've got Maddie, and I was down at the EU. New Forest for EU meeting in Lyndhurst last week, right? And it was great to meet you all, right? But Maddie went on before me, and she was talking about how some of the comments she gets is like
horrendous.
It's horrendous.
This is Madeleine Kay, EU Supergirl, who dresses up all colourful.
She was Young European of the Year in 2018.
And she gets a lot of hate directed at her because she's young, because she's pretty, because she's blonde, because she's erudite, and it's absolutely vile. You know,
incredibly well spoken. She's incredibly intelligent. She's very well talented, and she said the latest one is that.
And she's incredibly humane as well. She's very fair. She wants to engage with people who vote to leave. She's much more of a hug-a-lever kind of person than any of us are.
But she turned around and she said, I'm going to, people are saying we should, that she should now pose if she loves the EU so much, she should pose in bikinis in each EU capital for a calendar. So they're objectifying her, and it's like, seriously.
Yeah, but welcome to being a female.
Yeah, but me and Graham are going to do it in mankinis instead.
Okay, then.
Stockholm in stockings. You're going to be there. It's going to be excellent.
Okay. Where are we at with Brexit? Do you know what? I don't know if you've done a dedicated video about this, but what about the impact of Brexit in terms of the psychological impact and the physical health effects that come about? We
really
should I think we have. I want to see a class action suit against well, whatever the British equivalent of a class action suit is, against the government for pain and suffering, for the back pain, the insomnia, the suicides.
There are suicides happening
Oh,
in
yeah.
this country now.
And ruled by
because
an inquest.
Yeah.
A coroner sat in his court and said this lady contributed suicide on the 20th of March, 9 days before the original Brexit date, when we didn't have an extension on the horizon, because of the uncertainty created. And this is after 50 years in this country and 48 years married to a British person. So, and actually she's not the first such case I know. I know of 3 people who had heart attacks that were linked to Brexit.
There's a huge... What really is tragic about this whole thing is people who comment on these videos and they say, oh, well, I voted for this, get over it, we're going, we're leaving.
They're in the minority, by the way. Can we just stress that most people who watch these videos are actually really cool?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, of course. But we do get these comments from people, and I speak to people, and they just don't give a hoot about the human cost of Brexit. And there's going to be a huge human cost.
Well, there already is.
Well,
This is
but
it.
it's only
There
going to
already
get
is,
bigger.
and it's going to get
because
worse.
I'm of the belief, and we did touch on this before we had the break, like Cosi is trying to get settled status here.
Well, I have.
Oh, sorry. So
I've
you
got it
have
now,
got it. But there are plenty of people who haven't got it. And when you consider what Theresa May implemented when she got into power with Windrush, does anyone actually trust these people?
Well, this is the problem.
So this is a weight now that you've got Windrush, that's going to be hanging over people's heads. They could have been here for 30, 40 years, they could have paid national insurance in all that time. But they're going to be here, and they're going to be, there's a human cost to this, already, and it's only going to get bigger. And I'm sure that there's going to be scandal after scandal after scandal if we leave with no deal, because I've got no faith in any of these elected representatives to actually put in anything in place that safeguards their rights or anything like that.
Well, the problem is that our rights can be changed.
Yes,
so
in effect you've got no rights.
And I have indefinite leave to remain, but the Home Office makes changes to immigration rules all the time.
Yes.
All the time. They've made something like over 5,000 changes
And these
in
are
the last 10 years.
a lot of these are retroactive. They're things that if you're still here, you get affected by. It's not just new people coming along, is it?
Exactly. So, for example, one change that happened was actually in my favour. So, indefinite leave to remain, originally, if you were out of the country for 2 years or more, you would lose it. So you had to make sure that you come back at least once every 2 years. They've changed that after pressure from the 3 million and after lobbying from both the 3 million and the British in Europe, because we all stand together in solidarity. And it was changed to 5 years. So although that's not quite through, and it doesn't actually say it in my outcome letter yet, that is getting changed. So we know that actually the campaigning helps. The campaigning works. So it is worth doing. And our next campaign
was there a Tory MP who?
Yes.
What was his name?
Alberto da Costa.
That's him. Yes.
That's why it's called the Da Costa Amendment.
Right. Okay.
So thanks to that was changed to 5 years. So that's
this
good.
was a Tory MP helping you guys out.
Yes.
As opposed to Labour, who didn't they abstain on the vote on freedom of movement?
Don't.
Is that right?
Don't.
Did Labour abstain on that vote?
I probably they've abstained on lots of votes that.
No, I'm not talking about the vote to activate Article 50, in which they joined with Jacob Rees-Mogg, held his hand and skipped through the division lobby with him on a 3-line whip.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Labour abstaining on freedom of movement.
And let's face it, freedom of movement is socialist internationalism in action.
Yeah, but Labour are not socialists anymore.
Well, no.
They're in league with the Tories. They are.
Yeah.
They're enabling.
They are enablers with the Tories, and they have this idea that there's a big scheme going on
it's
where
very simple.
we're gonna fuck the Tories over somehow.
If you create a party dictatorship, if you allow the Tories to create a party dictatorship, somehow you'll still manage to get an election because you can't not have elections. And after a few years, people will really start grumbling. So somehow you get an election, and because the Tory are fucking it up so badly, you get in, and then It's your party dictatorship.
Yeah, but the Labour are still behind in the polls. And they've spent the first day of their conference arguing over whether they should sack or get rid of their deputy leader.
And also...
Or actually whether they should get rid of the whole post of deputy leader.
Yeah, so they could get rid of him, because they couldn't get rid of him. So what they've done is straight out of Dominic Cummings'
little rule book,
his little book of terror, where he goes, right, how can I get around these rules?
What's my workaround?
We can't get rid of Tom Watson as a person.
But we can get rid of the
post. To get rid of him.
And
this is
also,
what's dominating the news today, though.
Yeah.
Instead of, I don't know, Labour's policy on transport or the NHS.
Or Boris Johnson lying again. You know, and this is the other thing as well, is that the Labour Party yesterday were talking about removing the students who would tend to be more moderate. Yeah. They were talking about getting rid of them.
Oh yeah, the student part of Labour.
And they're talking
one of the student parts of Labour. Yeah, I think they've done it. They got
who are centrist.
Yeah, the two centrists.
You know what they're saying? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes.
Do you think because they've gone so extreme in the Tory party with the ERG, do you think it's gone the other way with the Labour Party?
No, I think Labour have stuck with the ERG and joined the ERG. They want Brexit,
you know
no
what?
matter
If you go left long enough, you end up on the right.
On the right.
Well, it's a political spectrum. It's not a political spectrum,
exactly.
it's a political sphere. You just come around to where you started off. And this is the thing with talking to the revolutionary communists in Newcastle a couple of weeks ago. These are people on the very hard left, and they want Brexit. They want Brexit just as much as Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Farage, and Murdoch, and Johnson, although he doesn't really want to.
And is that like the guy that I came across who said, I voted to leave because I'm a Marxist and I want to smash the system? Is that the same?
No. These people think that the idea of cooperating with our closest neighbours is not a good idea. They don't like it.
Well, they think that the EU is neoliberalist.
I don't even know what neoliberalist means, so if someone's explaining it to me.
Neoliberal means that you have... I didn't know this before Brexit.
I've got a degree in politics. I just think that people just make these terms
Neoliberalism is about having absolutely no barriers to trade and government doing everything to facilitate capitalism and not... Well, hang on, it goes further. And government doing everything to facilitate corporations and trade and big business, but nothing to curb them, to rein them in any way, shape or form.
Okay, so the EU, which has famously got Google to pay out a shitload of money in tax that it didn't pay, that famously has the German system of the trains, which are nationalised, and the French nationalised train systems. It's got the drugs policy of Finland, which is incredibly liberal. We've got the education system. Sorry, not Finland. Portugal.
Netherlands as well.
Well, Netherlands not as liberal
as Portugal.
Portugal's got one of the best attitudes towards drugs although I hate drugs and wish they didn't exist, and I think that all of the problems that exist now in the world are caused by the fact that all the people in charge now got off their heads on drugs in the 1980s and it fucked their brains, and now they're in charge. This is cocaine. This is all Pablo Escobar's legacy. This is what we're going through.
It's possible.
Trump, Brexit, Erdogan, Bolsonaro, they are all the legacy of these horrible rich kids at the public schools getting off their heads on cocaine in the 1980s, and now they're grown-ups.
And growing their inflated egos.
Yeah. And the people they got on their side are the people who smoked loads of weed when they were teenagers, who are now madly paranoid about everything because weed makes you super paranoid, boys and girls. Did you not know this?
Yes, in fact.
And if you ever talk to someone who thinks we didn't land on the moon, or what's her name? Camilla Parker Bowles, no, the other one.
Princess
Diana was assassinated. They generally are massive potheads. They generally go hand in hand. Like being a Brexiteer and a racist and a bit thick.
Nothing like being generalistic here, but he's probably right.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to just talk a little bit, bring the conversation back to the human cost of Brexit. Because someone made a very good point in one of the comments on the last video when we were talking to Doro and Peter, and they said about what you were just saying about having a class action lawsuit. You're talking about 3 million people and the effects, the physical effects of the sleepless nights. Oh, and also the Brits living abroad.
Exactly, so there's 5 million of us. That's why we have to hashtag the 5 million.
Spain who think Brexit is a good idea.
There's not that many of them.
There's enough.
In the British in Europe, there are... forgotten the figures now, but it was either 60 or 80% were actually of working age. And most of the people who, I think it was 60% who are working age, and 80% of those were outside of the 15-year rule. Because what happens if you retire abroad, you retire at, let's say, 65.
Yeah.
By the time you're affected by the 15-year rule, you're 80. Not that many around anymore. You know, your chances of actually being alive when you're 80 are somewhat lower than your chances of being alive at 60. Whereas people who go abroad, start a family, raise a family, work, but still have family here, still have their parents here that they might have to come back to look after them, or might want to actually come back to retire in the UK. People who go abroad for a higher income elsewhere rather than the UK. Can you imagine that?
Well, lots of countries pay better than the UK.
Yes.
I know. I've lived in many.
They easily clock up 15 years.
Yeah.
It happens like that.
It does, yeah.
You know.
So can we do this though? Is this possible? Is this
I
something
don't know.
that we could
Tell us in the comments if you're a lawyer. Can we do this? Because you
Can we sue the government?
2 million, roughly, just under 2 million.
Sue David Cameron.
Yeah, okay.
It's all his
He can
fault.
afford it.
Yeah.
Panama Papers, right?
He's just had his book out this week.
If you are interested in books,
British in Europe.
Cosi has put in Limbo and In
Yes.
Limbo 2. We
So-
don't just plug Graham's book.
That's right. Oh, well, I can mention In Limbo because
I
In
can
Limbo
plug my
are the
book.
stories of EU 27 citizens in the UK and how we are affected by Brexit. And there are roughly 3-point-something million of us. And then In Limbo 2 is about our twins, our mirror images. They're the British citizens in the EU 27 countries who are furious. They are so angry and they are really left in the lurch. One of them spoke to me the other day and he said, you know, there was this video of the Quitling, the leaver, who said he was perfectly happy not to get his insulin. He would put up with that, even though he's diabetic and he needs insulin. And they said, but what if you can't get your insulin? That's fine. I'm prepared for that.
Willing to die.
He's willing. Well, not only die. I mean, my friend who's
willing to die.
a British citizen in Europe and has diabetes, he said to me that he once ran out of insulin, and within a day, it took 3 days of intensive care for him to recover. Within a day, he was so ill and in so much pain, it is the worst death imaginable. And
This is
there
how
was
much
another
these
guy who the
people have
morning
been
after,
Who was this
brainwashed.
guy? Who was this video? What was it on?
It was on
I'll find
Twitter
it
or
for you. It was on
Facebook. We'll
Twitter.
send it and
Yeah.
we'll put the link in
We'll
the
find
comments.
it. We'll find it.
Okay, but yes, this guy is
He
like,
said, I will die.
I will happily die to get us
yeah.
out of the EU.
Yeah.
This
We
is
Prepared to
are
die
beyond
for
the
it.
looking glass here.
Yeah.
But it's not just
it's a
him
cult.
dying, it's him taking out
But he's
other
taking
people
other
as
people
well.
with him, and the
These are
other
not
thing is-
just as someone quietly committing suicide in their own house. These are suicide bombers. They're killing
Essentially,
themselves
yes.
and taking out as many people around them as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And this is where Brexit once again
Oh, there you go.
becomes
It's a mass psychosis.
a religious cult.
Yeah, it's a mass psychosis. So we have 5 million people who are in limbo and in limbo too. You know, 5 million people who
Oh, by
are
the way,
most affected.
we're plugging this book. It's not Cosi's. It's Eleanor Remigi. Nice to meet you, Eleanor, as well, by the way.
Eleanor Remigi
Whatever.
is the founder
Did you
of
meet
our
Eleanor
In
last
Limbo
week?
project. In
No,
Limbo
I didn't meet her
project.
last week. I've met her before.
And yes, it was her idea and her brainchild to write these books.
And what they are is
She wrote the
testimonies
rest of us
of
in.
the EU citizens living in the UK from the EU 27 and British citizens living in the EU 27.
So-
and they're very, very moving testimonies. And
They're real stories.
are you still in touch with a lot of the people who?
Absolutely,
who-
yes.
And
I read more stories every day because we have a Facebook group and
Yeah.
people share their stories in
and what
there
kind
every
of things
day.
are going on? I mean, are people like marriages splitting up
Yeah,
and
people leaving, marriages splitting up, people
what about the mental
divorcing.
health side of things?
We've had to write a suicide policy.
What do you mean a suicide policy?
We've had to write a policy for our moderators. We've got a team of moderators in the Facebook group, and we have a separate little group where we discuss things like in a back room. And we have had to write a policy for ourselves for how to deal with posts or comments that mention suicide, because we've had so many of posts where or comments where people said they just want to drive us to suicide. All I've got left is topping myself.
This is absolutely heartbreaking, because when you consider this is someone's mother or someone's brother who.
I was hoping to mention that.
They're living this on the basis of some wet dream by Nigel Farage, who went to, I think it was Harrogate earlier this year for the Brexit Party Company Limited, when he was doing his silly little march, which about 30 people went on. Right, compare that to the same march in London where there was over 1 million.
2 million.
And, you think, I
will call it every time.
Right, well, whatever the figure was.
Cosi was there with the
2 million, I clicked.
But someone said to Farage in Harrogate in North Yorkshire, "Oh, good on you, Nigel, let's get our empire back." So this is some wet dream that we were talking about earlier of people with these rose-tinted spectacles on.
Program.
But now, we're not an empire, and nor should we be. And we've got real people with real lives making real positive contributions to this country. And you've got someone with no teeth and, tinted spectacles on, inside saying, get our empire back. Yeah.
So we've got 5 million people who are most affected. But then those 5 million people have British family members. I've got my British husband, my 2 British children, and actually we're the average.
Yeah.
So that 5 million actually is 20 million.
It could be 20 million,
and
25 million.
More.
Yeah.
And actually 65 million are losing their rights, their right to freedom of movement. It is British citizens' rights that are being curtailed.
But they don't
that
care.
Are being cut.
Because you've got headbangers who, and the problem with the media now in this country, and it's not just here, it's the United States as well and Australia, is that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Hence why Nigel Farage gets so much coverage and so many guest seats
appearances
on Question Time. The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
I don't know about that. I wonder if there's something else.
Who do they
bribery.
put? Yeah, but who do they put on television? When there's something to be said, it's never Rory Stewart who's a moderate. It's now they get about 5 seconds. Yeah. It's Mark Puddin-Francois. It's Ian Dickhead Smith. It's Jacob Rees-Goebbels. It's.
Do you know what? I wouldn't even credit him with that much intelligence.
No, Goebbels was a scarily intelligent man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did he only have one ball?
No, that was Hitler, and me.
Oh, he had 2, but very small.
Right.
Yeah.
Something I share in common with Hitler.
Part of the One Ball Club.
Yeah. The One Not Wonder.
Well, you're a cancer survivor.
I'm a cancer survivor. survivor.
Fair enough. Is that why you're mentioning it?
And the thing is.
So holy shit! What about cancer treatment?
Treatment.
This is something immense, because something like we were talking about iodine 131, which is used in a variety of medical procedures. There's a tracer that they use, for checking your the way your blood goes around your bloodstream and everything. It's got a half-life of 8 days. So you can't
really
hold it up at the
stockpile
port
it.
because after just a week, the potency of it has halved.
Well, they won't hold it up at the port. They'll prioritise it. But
no, they won't have a choice.
The thing is,
how can you prioritise something that's jammed in a traffic jam somewhere?
Well, I got a message from Kieran, the van driver, just a little bit
it's
earlier.
Always good to hear from you, Kieran, as well.
Hi, Kieran.
Hi, Kieran.
And he
love Kieran.
He sends me links all the time.
Yeah, and I'm okay, am I?
But he just said he was talking to a friend in Northern Ireland who I can't name who it is, but he told me that the government is going to charter flights from East Midlands Airport to Belfast for isotopes at the cost of £28,000 a flight.
Right. So I touched on this. I touched on this in one of our videos.
That they've just spent on the Get Ready for Brexit campaign and road shows.
100 million.
Road shows with some hired young people who are just doing it to get a few quid, who are probably getting less than minimum wage, to stand there and give information. Of what exactly? I really don't know. What information can they get? Please check. Find out. Find out what?
I touched on this in our video in Doncaster, that the minimum cost to hire a chartered aircraft is £9,000 per hour. That's a Boeing 737. And I got that fact from something and I pulled it out of my head, and then I did some research, and that's just for a Boeing 737. So to get aircraft that are big enough and got the capacity to get, realistic amounts of this stuff in, you're going to be looking at £25,000, £30,000 per flight just from Belfast to East Midlands, which is 1 hour.
And just to give people an idea of how much you can fit on one of these flights, it's probably about
70 tons.
70 tons. Is that all? How many 20-foot containers TEU can fit on a plane? I'd say 4, maybe 5 at a push.
Roughly.
Yeah.
4.
So imagine you're on a plane. You take all the seats out the plane, and then you put boxes in there instead. So maybe you'll fit 6. Maybe let's say 8. Let's be generous.
But that's physical capacity. That's not weight. Aircraft don't work on physical capacity. Aircraft work on weight.
Yeah, but you can only put so much in the actual space of the airplane.
Yeah,
it doesn't
exactly.
inflate to
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to you is that it doesn't matter. I mean, you could fit, as many 20-foot equivalent units in an aircraft. It's what's the weight?
It's capped at the weight.
It's capped at weight.
Okay, but the reason why I was talking about the 20-foot equivalent units
is to take it back to how many trucks would be.
Well, or how many you can fit on a ship, and the post-Panamax ships that they're making now hold 16,000 containers.
I know. Do you remember when we went to
Southampton?
Southampton?
Planes can't hold 16.
You wouldn't get a whole container ship like that of isotopes, of iodine.
But what I'm saying is the amount of goods that are coming into the UK at the moment on cargo ships.
We talked about this, Cosi, in Southampton.
You couldn't replace it with planes now. That's ridiculous.
In Southampton, we went down to Southampton, and I was talking about, because I'd been working at the port of Southampton there doing the key crane inspections.
Yeah.
There's one.
You lost that job because of Brexit, didn't you?
No, I didn't lose that job because of Brexit. So, I lost another job because of Brexit.
Oh, right.
My job since then. But however, when I was working at Southampton, they were and still are owned by Dubai Port World. They own another port in London Gateway. Down the road from that is London Tilbury. Now, I remember doing the key crane inspections, and when there's either one 40-foot container or two 20-foot containers taken off a ship every 45 seconds. There's 3 or 4 key cranes working, or maybe 5, working each ship.
Yeah.
The port of Tilbury moved 1 million 20-foot equivalent unit containers into the UK. So they were taken off a ship, put on a train, and brought into the UK in 2017 alone. That's one port by rail into the UK alone.
Yeah.
Times 2 by road transport.
Well, that's
times by 10 by all the ports.
The point I was going to make about the planes is if we got all the planes that are registered in the UK and the government bought them all, took all the seats out and put containers in them, they wouldn't be able to contain the same amount of containers as one cargo ship.
Definitely not.
Well, no, but they wouldn't need to, because the cargo ships will still be landing.
Yeah, but we've got to check the containers.
Problem is,
we have to open them, look inside, make a catalogue, write down all the things that are inside. Then we have to send an email. Hang on, let me finish. They have to send an email off to the people who sent it. They have to check the rules of origin. They have to check the tariffs. They have to check the quotas, and then they have to wait for the email to come back, which can take up to 2 weeks.
Have they hired any staff to do this?
No.
And
the whole time, the thing has to be impounded. Now, we can impound them at the docks themselves, but we don't have the space. If we tried to do it in Bootle, we would have to raise half a Bootle in order just to fit the boxes. So they'll probably have inland processing centres, which will be in brownfield sites around, say, Manchester or something like that, where they will stack all these boxes up on top of each other and wait for a single squishy person to come and open them up, look inside, catalogue everything, close them up and say, yeah, that's okay.
And before you put in the comments, we can X-ray the contents, there is one truck at Southampton that's got an arm that comes off the side here, and it goes forwards and backwards every day over selected
Yeah, and
containers.
they're checking for drugs and they're checking for
illegal immigrants and
yeah.
stowaways.
Yeah.
And it takes 10 minutes per container as a minimum. So, I mean, people are just...
And it needs radioactive isotopes.
And it needs radioactive isotopes.
Anyway, but can we just take it back to the human cost? Because we're going to have to wrap up soon because we've been yammering on and I'm hungry.
We're all hungry.
When we talk...
We're going to get hungrier if Brexit happens.
Because I know,
we might as well get used to it, actually.
I know
I hope you like root vegetables.
I know the impact that Brexit has had on my mental well-being. I find it difficult, and I'm the kind of person who's been in some tricky predicaments in my life that have been much worse than what I'm in at the moment.
Yeah.
But I just find it all so incredibly demoralising.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I was being told that after living here for the last 40 years, that I had to provide evidence to prove my worth to stay in this freaking country, that would crush me. I would just be like, stay with my husband or wife or stay with my kids. I mean, what the? There must be something we can do about this.
Well, for starters, let us vote. Let us vote. Let us have a referendum. Let EU citizens with indefinite, not just EU citizens, let all those people who have indefinite leave to remain vote in all elections. Give me the right to vote.
Is that a Labour Party policy?
No.
Oh.
No, that's a campaign by the 3 million.
What? Just out of interest.
Labour Party. I mean, look. Have you still not twigged that the Labour Party has become completely irrelevant? I do wonder because you rant and rave a lot. I know, and I understand why. It's because you feel betrayed by the Labour Party.
Yeah, I used to be a member.
Totally understand that. But the thing is, they've become an irrelevance. They've just become an irrelevance.
Under Corbyn, they have.
Which is a shame because I used to have a huge amount of respect for Corbyn years ago. But the lack of
leadership,
engaging with Brexit, addressing it, it's just completely, they're
the
just
lack of being an effective opposition leader, and the clue is in the job
which is
title.
Ironic.
But the point that they always make whenever there's a march, whenever there's a rally for the EU against Brexit, the leadership make a point of doing something else that day.
Yeah.
Of just making it very clear to you as an EU citizen that you don't matter to them. They do not care.
And that is after standing on the stage in Glastonbury on the 3rd of June 2017 and uttering the words, EU citizens must be allowed to stay. I'm going to gloss over the fact that I take issue with the phrase must be allowed. The sentiment is, the heart is in the right place and the sentiment is very much appreciated. But there has been nothing to follow up on that. They've had every opportunity to ask for our rights to be ring-fenced, for our rights to be guaranteed,
And the hardest work has been done by a Tory MP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that says it all. Corbyn is an ass.
Corbyn has destroyed Labour, and the only people who... I want Labour to win the next election. That's why I don't want Corbyn to be leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I want the Lib Dems to win the next
Well, yes,
election.
I'm a member of the Lib Dems, so...
But that's the thing,
or a traffic light coalition.
There are so many people who would love there to be an effective opposition to the Conservatives.
Well, the SNP has done more opposing than any of the other...
Ian Blackford I'm not talking about in Scotland, I'm talking about Ian Blackford, who's the leader of the SNP in Westminster.
Is a genius,
and he's a proper wordsmith. And I remember him, I think I spoke to you on the phone about him, that he said, and this says it all, there's a shiver running down the Labour front bench looking for a spine to crawl on.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Between Blackford and Mary Black
it's cruel.
and
it's just
Philippa Ratz, the surname's gone, but her husband is originally from Germany and he's a GP and she is amazing.
I know the one you mean, yeah.
Anyway. Right. The SNP certainly has shown more leadership, and I wish we could vote for them around here.
I wish we could, yeah.
Wow.
I do actually know three SNP members, signed up members, who reside in Merseyside. So we probably actually have enough to form a little chapter.
Well, actually, could we get some of those into these podcasts?
Well,
oh God, yeah.
We could try.
And one I can definitely drag into a podcast.
I just feel like this whole thing from top to bottom, and everyone who wants this, it's just this blithe cruelty, this unthinking malice against people they don't know, people they don't meet, people who, you know, their lives just don't matter to them.
I mean,
and they say this is a sacrifice that I'm willing to make, but they want you to make that same sacrifice.
It's, yeah.
And it's a bigger deal for someone like yourself who wasn't born in the country to be told now after all these years, you're not welcome.
Yep.
And that's
it's heartbreaking.
The nub of this
it's
whole
really,
thing.
really heartbreaking, especially when, you know, when I turn around. I mean, there was one leaver I met in person, you know, in real life in London, and outside Buckingham Palace. We accidentally wound up outside Buckingham Palace on our way to a march. Anyway, I had my daughter with me, my 8-year-old child, and he seemed a sort of friendly grandfather sort of type, and I told her to stand there next to the fountain where I can keep an eye on you and stuff. And he saw something on me that kind of identified me as being against Brexit. He went, "Oh,
was it that EU flag or that EU flag? Was it this EU flag? Was it that EU flag? Was it that EU?
Not
One of
sure. Might have
The
been,
EU
might have
wristband.
been-
EU wristband that gave
Might
away.
have been my placard that said "Boo to Brexit," but
Okay, yeah, probably.
anyway, I kind of tucked that away because the police told us to and stuff. And I tried to give him a flyer of the In Limbo project, and he said, "Oh, you don't want to give me one of those. That's Liverpool for Europe being absolutely wonderful and leafleting loads." And I said, "Well, you know, these are just our personal stories." And he said, "No, I'm not interested. I voted to leave." And I went, "Well, okay, that's fair enough. I was at pains." And I said, "But what's supposed to become of me? I'm a German citizen. I've lived here for 30 years. This is my child. This is my daughter. What, would you like to tell her that I should be sent away?" And he said, "No, I just don't care."
Yeah, that's it.
That's
what
it.
it comes down
I just
to.
don't care.
There are millions of people in this country right now who don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about Cosi. They don't care about Adam. They just really, really don't care. And
As long as
They
they
don't
get
even
their
care about
little...
themselves.
the lack of empathy is the most damaging thing in society right now.
Yeah.
Forget about the lack of education or the age thing or whatever. It is the lack of empathy, and that cuts across educational bands.
It's pure
cuts across
selfishness.
age.
It is just selfishness.
Yeah.
That they feel that they're aggrieved. Like the gentleman in Worcester who said, "Oh, I'm voting for Brexit because I'm fed up of seeing all the Polish food in one aisle in Sainsbury's." You know, and you think, holy shit, these people from Poland saved this country in 1940. And you think, God, you know. And it's like, okay, well, we'll take the Polish food out of the Sainsbury's. What about the Italian food that he's probably going to have that night? You know, we'll take that. And what about the, I don't know, French wine? Well, we'll take that out.
Potatoes came from the New World.
Potatoes did indeed come from the New World.
So
The
did
immigrants
tomatoes.
coming over here, and chocolate.
Yeah.
Grr.
And tobacco.
But a lot of the food that we eat comes from the EU.
It does.
We like those immigrants. And so here we are. And the human cost of this is epic.
It's immense. I mean, even look.
It's immeasurable.
And this is how long ago? Ages ago already. Almost a year ago, when the In Limbo books were presented in Brussels. Jude Curtin-Darling, who's an MEP, sat there and said she had lumbago. She had a really, really, really bad case of lumbago. She was bent over double. She had a really bad back. And she suddenly realised, and these are her words, "Shit, Brexit broke my back." That's what she said. Because she was hearing about our stories and understood that it was personal for her as well. And it's personal for all of us.
I've had sleepless nights
Yeah.
over Brexit, and I am not someone who is going to be profoundly affected by it in the same way that other people will be. And if that's affecting me and my mental health to that extent, I shudder to think what it's like
for other people.
Right.
Like the
Because I
British
have-
gentleman who's in Germany, and after Theresa May decided to scrap the S1 scheme, he basically said that he refuses to come back to the UK, and he said, "I'm probably going to be dead a month after Brexit." if there's no deal. And that was a unilateral decision. Theresa May stood in Parliament last December and unilaterally decided not to fund the S1 scheme anymore, which pays for medical treatment of pensioners abroad. And they didn't, this is not a mutual thing. This is,
Right.
German pensioners will still get their treatment paid for here because they just get a bill from whoever they saw, whichever doctor or whatever, and take it back to their insurance and get reimbursed. So this is a unilateral decision to kill your own citizens. That's what she did.
Wow.
There's a glimmer of light at the end of this tunnel, and this is this. Young people do not want to leave the EU.
Young people-
overwhelmingly do not want to leave the
young
EU.
people want the same rights and privileges that their grandparents and their parents voted to
Absolutely.
kick
Yeah.
into the long
So
grass.
one day we will, if we do leave, we will rejoin. So all of this
So
is so pointless.
And actually, it's the
So
solidarity.
stand with our friends.
It's the
Come on, guys.
solidarity
Yeah.
from Remainers that
Yeah.
keeps me going. That is the best medicine.
And
Ever.
what Brexit has done, inadvertently, it's made Britain home to the biggest pro-EU
Pro-EU
movement
movement.
in Europe. So
Right.
thanks,
Go
Brexit.
figure!
Right. And on that note,
On that note,
back to the studio and here's to the EU.
here's to the EU. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.